Many of you don't believe the government is doing enough to sort the migrant crisis. I want to play you something here. Is this the kind of leadership that you want on an issue such as this?
Those who are illegal immigrants will be returned, and it is customary international law for countries to receive their own immigrants back into their country. And if the right honourable gentleman is suggesting that we ever get to a position when you cannot return illegal immigrants to their country of origin, then he is proposing international chaos.
Yeah, and that proposal worked, because we now have international chaos. Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s, for goodness sake, talking about the issue of immigration and resettling illegal people that come to this country and the wider issue for the world. That's how they spoke about it then. What do we do now? Well, we have lots of initiatives and no real action. The migrant crisis is expected to last for at least another 5 years, according to a government memo. The internal document, drafted by top civil servants at the Home Office, I think they're called mandarins, aren't they? Mandarins at the Home Office, stated that the government is planning to use disused RAF bases and a prison to house migrants for between 3 and 5 years, or possibly longer. Keep your eye on that last phrase, possibly longer. The mass accommodation centres are designed to reduce the £6 million a day bill, which is housing 51,000 migrants and nearly 400 hotels, amid a backlog of more than 170,000 asylum seeker applications waiting to be decided. It's funny how those numbers just kind of glaze over us now, don't they? 170,000. It's the backlog. And then you're adding to that every single day. 170,000 claims. Wow. How did we get here? Steven Woolfe, former MEP, is with us. Afternoon to you, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Nice to have you with us. I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it? The Thatcher clip is quite inspiring listening to that. I'm sure you felt the same.
Yes, I did. And what I find by listening to Margaret Thatcher is how, since then, every government, Labour and Conservative, have been unable to return large numbers of people back to the countries that these people come across. Our research shows that since the year 2000, 1.25 million people have come to the United Kingdom claiming asylum. 1.25 million people. And that has come from 206 countries. And the latest people are coming here. The top 10 include, as we'd expect, Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Eritrea, but also China, India, and Albania. So when you look at those numbers, they're astonishing. And this year it will cost around £8 billion to the Exchequer to cover the costs from start to finish of asylum and immigration.
I said at the beginning, Stephen, you probably didn't hear the intro to the show. We have not one but two governments apparently working on this, the French and us, two powerhouses of first world status, if you like, two intelligence services, two prime ministers and presidents, etc., two navies, two RAF people, two Air Force groups, and yet we can't stop a con man on a beach in Dunkirk flogging trips on a dinghy. That seems unbelievable, I think, to most of us.
Well, I would like to put it this way. There are 2 points to this. First of all, the Joint Intelligence Cell that has been joined between the French and the government have actually had some success. I mean, I think if they hadn't had some success, we'd be seeing much larger numbers. Last year, I'm informed by the Home Office that they prevented nearly 33,000 crossings. And that's 40% up from the year before. They've stopped 82 organised crime groups, and they've led to 400 people smugglers being arrested. But the fact that we're getting such large numbers shows how deep and how extensive the people smuggling lines are, running from Afghanistan all the way through to the Channel on one side, from Italy all the way up to the Channel on another's, and through their countries. How much money they're making, on average, they'll make about £200 million in the crossings from last year. And actually, how big it is for both the French and the British governments to do. But I do ask this one question. If it was Russia coming across the border to try and enter into the United Kingdom, by small boats like this, how quickly do we think that both the French and the British governments would stop them?
It's a great point. And even, you know, I'm not, it might surprise you to know this, Stephen, but I'm not a senior naval commander. I mean, a lot of people assume I might be. Neither do I run the RAF or anything like that. However, I've got a thought that surely some kind of line, literally a line of vessels or drones, and probably a bit of both, would be the obvious, at least the beginnings of a solution to this. And I'm not aware, you know, once in a while we might see an image of a French naval ship or a British or whatever, but I'm not really aware that anyone is seriously looking at it in that particular way. Or am I wrong?
Well, they certainly increased the number of drones that are being used across the whole coastline of France. And the French coastline is very large. It also steps into, you know, other countries such as Holland as well, where there is a potential for use as well, although France is much easier because it's nearer to the UK.
Yeah.
There is no proposals, I understand, as almost a complete blockade that you would see. I mean, I've been watching you know, Star Wars, the clone movies with my daughter over the weekend, and the separatist movements there were able to put huge blockades all the way around planets. Well, I don't see anything like that attempt here by the French or the British government. But there's no doubt about it. If you had a continual blockade, then you would be able to see and spot more coming back. But it, again, always relies upon the French being able to accept them as they come out into the British waters to remove them back to France. And that'll never happen. That'll never happen under Macron. It'll never happen if Le Pen got in.
Yeah.
It would never happen if anyone gets in, because the French already have a problem of their own.
It's extraordinary. So it wouldn't stop people arriving in France. So that's where obviously their focus is, you're saying. The fact that some of them, but not all of them, leg it to, or try to leg it to the UK is secondary to their own domestic issues with immigration.
Yes, they won't stop them getting into France because the European Union is failing to have an effective border system. They've put over 10 billion in terms of trying to stop illegal immigration into the countries of Greece and Italy and Spain. But in reality, one often thinks that there isn't a real serious will to either deal with the imperfections of Schengen, which allows people to move across borders very easily, to put really strengthened borders. Even the Italians, which suggest with the government that they've got in there, are still allowing boats to come in, but they're shipping them up into one port, and they're not really stopping it. The European Union has said that they expect between 325,000 and 350,000 people to come to Europe this year, and that, according to a past commissioner of the European Commission, 60% of them are economic migrants. So they really genuinely don't have a will to stop them. And if they don't, they'll get to France, and from France, they'll get to us.
So to employ your previous analogy, we need a Luke Skywalker on the case. We've got an R2-D2 at the moment.
Well, someone said to me then, you know, what happens on Bibby was carry on up the Bibby, which is like one of the old Carry On movies.
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed. And I do feel sorry for the government, actually, when things like that happen, because, you know, but it shows an inequity between government and local government to be able to talk to each other. When Dorset Council are actually doing the tests and they take such a long time to give to the Home Office, that's a failure of communications.
Of course.
But actually, on the unfortunate element about it, it shows how big government is not able, even in a circumstance such as this, to successfully deal with policies, and why many of us argue that you need to put it much more stringently. We do need international cooperation in this, and it's about time all the governments come together and start to amend the UN Refugee Convention.
There it is. Stephen, thank you. Steven Woolfe, former MEP. This is now his territory, looking at issues around immigration.